Hey guys, I'm Jess. I've been an au pair in Switzerland for over a year and a half now. And because I write a blog about my au pair experience, I'm getting lots of messages from people like you who are thinking about becoming an au pair in Switzerland but don't know where to start. And because the questions are more or less the same all the time, I decided to put it all together and create small video series with tips and tricks on this topic. So in this first video, I'm going to talk about pros and cons of being an au pair in Switzerland. Precisely said, it's 5 big pluses and 1 big minus on the topic. So if you don't know anything about Switzerland or being an au pair, this might be the right place to start. At least I hope. Let's do this! The internet is full of amazing pictures and videos from Switzerland. High mountain peaks, crystal clear lakes, romantic cities. So many people are coming here already in love with this country because they think it's some kind of heaven on earth. Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. I guess this one didn't really surprise anyone, right? Because even though this country is really small, it has everything except for the sea, but you don't really need the sea if you have so many lakes. So if you are a nature lover, you are going to be in 7th heaven in Switzerland. There are uncountable hiking trails, via ferratas, waterfalls, caves, lakes where you can do water sports, and I'm not even talking about ski slopes. I've been here for over a year and a half now, and even though I visited many places, it still feels like I just started exploring. To tell you the truth, you could spend all your life here in Switzerland and you would never get enough. I'm sure even culture lovers will be in their domain because Switzerland is proud of its many art galleries and museums, and many of them are pretty interactive, so I'm sure you will find exactly what interests you. Just make sure to have your COVID pass ready because no one knows how long this mess will last. Many people I've spoken to since I moved to Switzerland were like, "Oh, so you live in Switzerland, that means that you speak very good Deutsch, right?" No, I don't speak overall Deutsch, neither Swiss German, I speak French. Maybe this is not gonna be a new information for you, but there are many people who actually don't know that Switzerland has 4 official languages. It is true that over 60% of this country speaks Deutsch, German. But then there is another 20% in southwestern regions that are bordering France that speaks French. And then there is Italian part of the country, which is like 8% of the population, and they speak Italian. So if you actually choose a family that lives in this region, you can effectively learn Italian or French, not only Deutsch. The 4th official language in Switzerland is Romansh. It's a descendant of Latin and only like 0.5% of population can use this language, which is like 40,000 inhabitants of Switzerland. Even if Romansh is not exactly the language you will come here to learn, the other 3 definitely are. So if you were like, "Oh, I would like to come to Switzerland, but I don't want to learn Deutsch, I don't like that language," you don't have to. You can pick Italian or French, you just need to make sure that your family, the host family, will live in the right canton. You can pick and choose. I'm about to stick to the topic of languages for a little moment. So let's say that you want to come to Switzerland and you only can speak English or your mother tongue in English. It might be a bit frightening that you'll be coming to a country where you will not be able to communicate or understand at all. But don't worry guys, people in Switzerland really can speak English. From my own experience, in all the places I traveled to, people were able to communicate at least in basic English. It is certainly not a problem in touristically occupied places, but I never had any problems with authorities either. So if I accidentally bumped into someone who didn't speak English, they usually understood what I wanted and got the thing done. Generally speaking, the level of English in Switzerland seems to be quite high. Now I speak for German parts and French parts because I never visited Italian parts yet. But from my experience, I never had a single problem with English. For example, there is a like 80 years old guy on my floor who speaks fluently English, the lady in the bakery speaks English, and when I arrived here, my 13 years old host kid already had A2 exam and he was fully able to communicate with me in English. So I really wouldn't worry about this. If you know English, it certainly will help you to start your life in Switzerland. And even if you don't know English, don't worry. You just need to learn some vocabulary, listen to people around you, and you will pick up on the new language quite quickly. In the end, knowing English or having a common language in the family can slow down your learning because people will simply tend to explain things to you in English just because it's easier. It was certainly my case when I came here. The first few months, my host family spoke to me mostly in English until the grandfather of the family gave us all a big tell-off. Guess what? Suddenly, after that, my French got much better. This next one might be important for many, especially for women. Safety. How safe is Switzerland? Do I need to worry? Should I take some self-defense classes or something? Although it's good to be prepared for anything everywhere because there is crime everywhere around the world. But in Switzerland, I wouldn't worry that much. In 2021, Switzerland was in the top 10 safest countries in the world. And if you search for safe countries in Europe, Switzerland will be always in the top 5. From my own experience, I cannot talk for big cities because I live in a smaller one. But during the year and a half of my stay, I never felt endangered. There were a few times when I was a little more cautious about my surroundings, but that can happen anywhere. It certainly happened to me back home in the Czech Republic, and that country is even safer than Switzerland. It is good to be cautious in general because thieves and idiots are everywhere around the world, but in Switzerland, the possibilities that something will happen are not so high, so I wouldn't worry. I will give you one good example for everything, I think. I know people in this town don't always lock their cars and they leave keys inside. A big plus about becoming an au pair in general is meeting new people and getting to know different cultures. That's the concept of being an au pair in general, I think, making culture exchange. So once you're in, you move in with your host family, you're in full immersion, you're getting to know lots of culture differences, you're meeting friends of that family, and if everything works out well for you, you become part of that family yourself. But if you are not in a young family, there will be probably some age gap between you and your host parents and another one between you and your host kids. So you will not be exactly with your peers and that might get lonely. Don't worry about staying home alone because there are definitely lots of opportunities to get to know other people. Like for example, at language courses, you will for sure meet other au pairs you can hang out with or another people who came to Switzerland for work. So for sure you will find some new friends, you will make new acquaintances. It's mostly up to your social skills. And even if you don't have any, don't worry. If you prefer to meet people online, there are Facebook groups on au pair in Switzerland. There are profiles about traveling Switzerland on Instagram, and people there are discussing places and they are forming travel groups. So I'm sure you can find someone to hang out with. I came to Switzerland in mid-2020, just before the second wave of COVID started. And even with all the restrictions, I was able to make amazing friends and I'm not a social butterfly. So even if Swiss people might have a bit of a reputation of cold fish and the country might seem a bit closed on the outside, actually the opposite is true. This country is full of foreigners and many of them are here alone and searching for new friends. So whether your new friends will be native Swiss or foreigners, don't worry, I'm sure you'll do just fine finding them. The last point I want to talk about in this video is money. Because this is a huge topic and it can turn out to be a big point against coming to Switzerland. So there is something like a general myth about people in Switzerland being rich. I met a lot of people who were like, "Oh, you're living in Switzerland, you are going to make a lot of money." Nope. It doesn't work like that with being an au pair. It doesn't matter if you're in Switzerland, Norway, or Italy. It simply doesn't matter where you are. Being an au pair is not about making money. Sure, there can be exceptions. I'm not saying otherwise, but talking from my experience and from experience of every single au pair I met here, it's simply a big no. It's not that the family won't pay you, they will, but this country is simply too expensive. Let me explain this a bit further, okay? As I mentioned before, being an au pair means being part of a culture exchange program. It's not technically a job. For sure, you will work, you will take care of the children, you may do some chores, you may cook, and at the end of the month you will get some money. But the host family, they have expenses for you as well. They need to pay you for food, maybe some insurances and other things. So what you get at the end of the month is actually a pocket money. But that's nothing new, right? That's the same in all countries. But the problem is that the pocket money you get might not be just for your personal use. You might need to pay for health insurance, part of social insurance. Some cantons you need to pay for a language course, and I could go on and on. So the ugly truth is that the money you get might be insufficient to prices in Switzerland. I mean, yes, if you have read something about being an au pair and you've seen tables of salaries, Switzerland will be definitely on the top. I mean, we get a lot of money, but it's not without a reason, because this country is really expensive as hell. And it is expensive for people who live here and work for full salary. So to summarize, you need to think twice and count a lot if coming to Switzerland is really worth it. If the amount of money you will be left with will allow you to explore a bit, or if you will just be sitting on your ass at home. Because honestly, that can happen. I had a friend like that, and she left Switzerland with even less money than she came with. So you need to have your eyes wide open, and when communicating with your host family, you need to ask the right questions and make sure about who will pay what, so you are not surprised in the end. I'll make sure to make a video about that topic especially, because to tell you the truth, I've met some au pairs who had no idea about their rights, and they didn't know what the host family should be paying for them. So some people might use this situation, and these girls ended up paying until there was nothing left for them. So that will be all for this first video. I hope that it worked well as an introduction into being an au pair in Switzerland. In my future videos, I'll be going in more depth about this topic. I want to talk about how to pick the right host family, who should pay what you should ask them, about your obligations towards the family, about the obligations of the family towards you. So there is quite a lot to cover. But if you have any questions or topics that you think I should include and I didn't mention it yet, please leave the comment below or message me on my social media. I'll do my best to answer your questions and help as I can. So bye for now, see you soon.